Most of our learning, Shed the Base of English, for Shlaim, for Yalmas and Sarah, and Moshe Kukar is one Okay, we learned, we're on Beis and Beis. We're going to start from Meisvei. Meisvei is, let's see, about, like 20 lines from the bottom. Okay, so in order to understand the Meisvei, we just have to go over just a small piece. There's three opinions. First of all, there's a machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan about a sukkah that's over 20 amas. The Rabbanan, or the Tanakama, say that it's possible, and Rabbi Yehuda says that it's kasha. Okay, easy. Then we had a discussion between the Talmidim of Rav. When is the machlekes of Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama? Is it in a case of what type of case? No, nothing. Thank you. What type of case is it? Thank you. Rabbi Yoshia said that it's the machlekes and the fanes are not magias the schach. The walls only go partially up, 10 tefachim walls, but they don't reach the roof. And then, if it's too tall, then it's the Tanakama says possible. But if the walls would go all the way up to the roof, then everyone would agree that it's kosher, even the Tanakama, if the walls went all the way up. Rav Huna and Rav Chana Barabba said the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama is in a case where the sukkah is small. It's the minimal size of a sukkah, just about. Chana Barabba says it's 7 by 7 tefachim, and then it's 20 amas tall. Very narrow, but it's very tall. And Rav Huna says that it's anywhere within 7 tefachim to 4 amas. But any bigger than 4 amas is going to be kosher, even according to the Rabbana. Okay, now we're going to start the Meisvei. So those pictures, that's going to come up on the next page. Most of this is for the next page. However, you see the picture that has the kids in it? 7 kids in the sukkah. This picture. I sent them the chat some pictures. That's going to be relevant for us. You might have it in the back also. Okay, Meisvei. We're quoting a brisa. It sounds familiar because it's exactly the words of our Mishnah so far. A sukkah that's above 20 amas is possible. Rabbi Yehuda machshir. He adds in that exaggeration. Until 40, 50 amas is all kosher. Yeah, Taisus over here discusses if it's kosher for 50, then it should be kosher for 40. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says he's going to prove that he's right, that a sukkah could be very, very tall. It says, Meister Behilni Amalka Balug. There's a story with Hilani. I guess Helen in English. Queen Hilani. She was a Jewish queen, not of Israel. She had her own country. And she converted together with her sons, Munbaz and another son. And she was in Lod. Shaisa Sukkas. That wasn't her country. That was a city in Israel. That the sukkah was 20 amas tall, or above 20 amas. The elders would come in. They didn't tell her anything. They were fine with her sukkah being so tall. This is Rabbi Yehuda's raya, right? The Rabbanan respond, Bisham raya. You bring a raya from this queen, Hilani. Isha sukkah, she doesn't need a sukkah anyway. So she built a sukkah. Maybe the rabbis didn't eat. I don't know. They went in to visit her, but she doesn't need a sukkah. So there's no proof from that it was kosher. Amalahan. So Rabbi Yehuda responded to them. That's very nice. You're right. A woman doesn't need to sit in a sukkah. Why? Because it's a mitzvah saseish. It's a time-bound mitzvah. But she had 7 sons. Everything she did was according to the sages. It had to be good. The Gemara says, "What are you adding over there?" She had 7 sons, so the sons need a sukkah. What are you adding in? Everything she did was according to the sages. So the Gemara explains, this is what Rabbi Yehuda meant. Maybe you'll say that the sons are minors and they're exempt. They're exempt from sukkah because only someone over bar mitzvah can sit in a sukkah. However, kivan the shiva havu, there has to, if there's 7 sons, doesn't say, I don't even know how to say that the couplets. How would you say? I don't know how to say so. But if there's 7 sons, they say it's 7 in one shot. So, septuplet. So that's not common, right? So, right, so it's not, that wasn't the case. The case was that she had 7 sons, and they were probably born one after another like that. So that means one of them needed to be 7 years old, around 7 at least. So that would be already an age that doesn't require the mother. The Gemara later on says, at what age does a child need to sit in a sukkah? At an age when he doesn't need his mother. At what age doesn't he need his mother? Possibly to go to the bathroom and clean himself without his mother. There's different opinions. But whatever the case is, one of them had to be that age. So which means that they had to be the age of chinuch. That's the age of chinuch. Interesting option the Gemara is giving me, that this woman converts, but maybe she doesn't keep the Rabbanan. So Tashma that says no, she does keep the Rabbanan, and you would say maybe she doesn't follow, she doesn't keep the mitzvah of chinuch. Chinuch is only the Rabbanan. Chinuch means to train, to teach your children Torah. That's a deraisa on the father. Chinuch is also on the father. It's a Rebbe Kivegas Kasha. Is that Chinuch is on the father anyway? Kivegas, a very good question. It's actually in double. Okay, there's other questions on this. We're saying here that she has to be one child at least that's Eina Tzarech L'imay, which means Higia L'Chinuch, reaches. I don't know if the father converted. I don't know. So there's obligation to teach the children Torah, and there's an obligation, rabbinic obligation, to train them to do mitzvahs. You know, it's a minor doesn't need to keep the Torah, but there's an obligation on the parent to train him that when he becomes bar mitzvah, he should be able to keep the Torah. How would this work biblically if the rabbis didn't come along and say that? So biblically, the child would reach bar mitzvah, and he wouldn't know how to say brachos, how to wash leibel, how to put on tefillin, how to do anything. And he would start training him then. And he would be exempt from all the things that he didn't know yet because he was an oinus, he didn't learn yet. But rabbinically, you have to train him before. When he becomes bar mitzvah, he should be able to. What we're saying here is that the mother kept all the rabbis' decisions, and she also trained her children to keep the mitzvahs, which means that they were sitting in the sukkah as well. The rabbis didn't say anything about the sukkah being too tall. See, that's a proof that the sukkah that's very tall is kosher. That's Rabbi Yehuda's proof. Okay. We're going to use this. There's a lot of things to discuss on this, but we're going to use this as a question on Rabbi Yoshia, Rav Huna, and Rav Hanan bar Rava, because they all claim that the machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan wasn't in every single case. It goes like this. If you go like Rabbi Yoshia, you say, what's the machlekes Rabbi Yehuda in the Rabbanan? That's if the walls didn't reach the roof. So what's our story over here? What they're arguing about? This is machlekes. I'm sorry. Darke shamal kalesha b'sukkah shein defanas migias saschach mishum avira. On top of Gimel. It's possible that a queen would sit in a sukkah that the walls don't go all the way up. Now, what we're suggesting is, what, she's so cheap, she doesn't have enough material to make walls. They know she has enough material. She's a wealthy woman. She's a queen, but she made it specifically to get a breeze, so the walls don't go up. So Rabbi Yoshe may be correct. We don't have the fanas migas saschach, and you see they're arguing. But according to Rav Huna and Rav Hanan Barabba, that says that they say that the machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbanan is only in a tiny sukkah, 7x7 or 4x4, 4x4 amas or 7x7 tvachim. That's her sukkah, a little sukkah, a little thing for a queen. Where's her entourage? Rashi says, where's all the people going to be? And the 7 kids. Amar Rabba bar Rav Ada leinitzcha l'sukkah asiyat kitenis. It's a very large sukkah, but it's made up with cubicles. It's like those offices, there's big rooms and there's just these dividers everywhere. So that's what it is. So it's small. What size is it? 7x7 talking cubicles. So everyone's there, yeah, but it's all divided up. It says, is that really what's happening? The queen has everyone divided up in these little cubicles. It says, no, it was a very large sukkah. But there was on the side a small room in the sukkah that was a small cubicle. And this is where the queen sat. So her entourage ate all together. But she was very modest, and she sat on the side. It goes like this. Rabbanan Savri, the Sukkah Ma'alya Havayasvi. Rabbanan Savri, Banea B'Sukkah Ma'alya Havayasvi. The Yasva B'Kitenis, Mishim Tzniusa. The Rabbanan say, what's the problem? I know it's a tall sukkah, but her sons that require a sukkah, rabbinically, because they've reached the age of China, are in the big sukkah with everyone else. Yeah, the whole sukkah is 20 on the side. But Rav Huna and Rav Hanan Barabba say that once it's larger than 7 tvachim or 4 amas, then everyone agrees it's kosher. Right. Right. Well, that was the reason why we're quoting this is we're challenging Rav Huna and Rav Hanan Barabba. That do you really think that was the original case that Rav Yehuda and Tanakama are discussing, that it was a tiny sukkah? It must have been, you have to add the details to the story. So the Rabbanan say that her sons were sitting in the large sukkah, and that's why the sages didn't say anything. Rav Yehuda says that her sons were sitting with her in her small sukkah. Her small sukkah is relevant because the small sukkah is also above 20 amas, and that's machlekes if it's kosher. The other sukkah, everyone agrees it's kosher. The small sukkah that's above 20 amas. The whole sukkah. But because she's in a cubicle in the sukkah. Because when you're in the cubicle, then you have a problem with recognizing, and getting shade, let's say, getting shade from the schach. Let's say you go like for Zera. You have a problem with getting shade from the schach, you're getting shade from the walls. Yeah. According to Rabbi Yoshe, it was open. It was open. And that's why there's a machlekes. In other words, we're looking for a machlekes because Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan are arguing about this case. So this has to be the case of the machlekes. Otherwise, what are they discussing? Tanakam agreed to that. It must be the case of machlekes. So we need it to be open according to Rabbi Yossi. We need it to be small according to Rav Huna and according to Rav Chanan Barav. And that's why we have a kasha here. It doesn't say. Yeah, I know, but it doesn't count as that. Doesn't make such a difference. Yeah, his Rabbi Yoshi's view wasn't relevant to the shade. Rabbi Yoshi's view was relevant to your eyes being able to see the schach. Here, Rav Huna's view was relevant to the shade coming from the schach. So Rabbi Yehuda says that the sons were together with her. The sages tolerated that sukkah. And so therefore, it must be that it was a kosher sukkah, or else they would have said something. And you see, they didn't say anything. That's Rabbi Yehuda's proof. The Rabbanan say the reason why they didn't say anything was because the boys were not there. The boys were in the large sukkah. And that's the machlekes. What was the story? Rashi mentions here a very difficult question. We have two opinions here. We have Rav Huna and Rav Chanan Barav. Rav Huna said that the sukkah, for there to be a machlekes, was 4 amas by 4 amas. Rav Chanan Barav says that the sukkah was 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. It's going to be practically impossible to get 7 boys with the mother in a sukkah that's 7 tvachim. If 4 amas by 4 amas, it's fine. But together with the table, what are you going to do over there? You're going to have each child as a tefach. It's not practical. Rashi says we're not answering the question according to Rav Chanan Barav. We're only answering according to Rav Huna. Taisvis looks at this a little different. Taisvis says that when a sukkah is 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim, it's really what Rav Chanan Barav really wants it to be is it can't be 7 tvachim in any direction. So really, in that picture that we saw over here, I don't have it in the back, but you may have it in the back. The picture where you have the boys, the boys sitting like that, that's wider than, it's only 7 tvachim in one direction, in the width, in the length. It was very long. So you have all the boys sitting over there, you see that? You have all the boys sitting there, and you see that picture. It's the same picture. So this is the picture. See that? Yeah. Okay, so Taisa says that there is an answer to Rav Chanan Barav as well. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak halacha tricha shtei machzekes reishi rubai v'shalchani. Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak says he paskins. I think it's Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak. I think it's Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's brother. I don't have a proof for that. Sort of have a proof for it. He says like this: the halacha is that a sukkah needs to be reishi rubai v'shalchani, to contain his head, majority of his body, plus a table, which the Gemara later on is going to tell me is 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. Amalei Rababa, come on, who are you paskening like? Bishamai, going like Bishamai. Amalei Ella, come on, who do you want me to go like? I'm going like Bishamai. Ikad Amri, others have another version to the story, very similar. Amar Rababa, Damalachmani, who told you this? Amalei Bishamai, Hivalei tells his man, Bishamai, and don't move, don't budge from this halakha. Okay, there's a thesis here, but I want to discuss it and after we finish a little more. Maskefla Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. And now we have Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak asking Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak. Nachman bar Yitzchak, his question is like this: we didn't mention what's going on over here. We just said, oh, you're going like Bishamai. It turns out that there is a machlekes, there is a Mishnah later on that discusses a machlekes Bishamai and Bisil. The only thing is it's a little bit vague what the machlekes really is. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, you're making it look like the machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel later on is about a sukkah that's very small, and they're arguing about the minimal size of a sukkah. I don't know if that's really the machlekes. They may be arguing about something else other than the minimal size of the sukkah. Dilma b'sukkah gedola pligi. Maybe they're really arguing about a sukkah gedola. Look again, the yasav akuma de matulsa. The example is he's sitting at the mouth, at the entranceway. Matulsa is a sukkah in Aramaic. Matulsa, that's the word, Aramaic word for sukkah. It also means shade. Of the shading, which means the sukkah. The sukkah is made for shade. Cell. It's similar to the word cell. The test and the tzaddik are interchangeable. V'shulchan b'tei chabayis. Yeah, the Dr. Stein. We always say that the top and the shin are interchangeable. Now we have a test and a tzaddik are interchangeable in Aramaic to Hebrew. So we're talking about a person is sitting at the entrance to a sukkah. His table is inside the house. The Beis Shammai Savri, he has like these large sliding doors, back doors. His house, he doesn't want to get his fancy table wet, so he leaves the table inside the house, and he goes outside with his folding chair, and he's sitting in the sukkah, but the food and everything is in the house. So Beis Shammai Savri goes in and Shami Yimashach Acha Shulchanai. Beis Hillel Savri like goes in. Beis Shammai say there's a gzeira. You may end up going inside to eat. Just you lean over the table. We don't trust you out there. Your sukkah is very large. We're not talking about a minimal size of a sukkah. We're talking about a large sukkah. Just you didn't put the table in the sukkah. Yeah, the Pais can discuss if this is an issue of a sukkah without a table, or this is an issue of a sukkah with the table in the house. Let's say there's no table anywhere. Does a sukkah need a table? Or that's a discussion. Whatever the case is, definitely Beis Shammai says there's an issue if the table is in the house. Beis Hillel Savri goes in. Beis Hillel like usual. Beis Hillel don't make the extra gzeros. They're not extra strict. Is there a picture there of this? So Beis Hillel say that we don't make this gzera. Now Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak's question is, what are you telling me? That it's a machlekes about a minimal size sukkah. It's not. It's a machlekes about a large sukkah, but the table is in the house. In other words, Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak says the machlekes is about a person that goes into a sukkah, but the sukkah doesn't have room for a table. Where Beis Shammai says that that's not kosher, and Beis Hillel says that is kosher. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says that's not a discussion if the sukkah doesn't have room for the table, where Beis Shammai is strict. We're talking about a sukkah that even if there is room for the table, but if the table isn't in the sukkah, Beis Shammai is strict as well. According to Beis Shammai, you have to have a table in the sukkah. That's what it appears. The question is that because of a minimal size, Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, or Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak a gzeira, that he may end up in the house? So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak is challenging Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak that's making a psak about a minimal size sukkah, saying that's not necessarily the machlekes. But Kanami, I'll prove it to you that I'm right. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, so in that his head, majority of his body is in the sukkah, but his table is in the house. Now ignore the words Beis Shammai Pais and Beis Hillel Machshir. Just look at the case. Misha Haya, it says someone that was. It's not talking about the sukkah. It's talking about a scenario where a person was in the sukkah majority, but his table was in the house. It didn't say the sukkah containing. And if according to you, Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, that it's talking about a minimal size sukkah, it should have said a sukkah that contains, or a sukkah that doesn't contain the table. It didn't say contain. It just says someone that was. See, I'm right. We're not talking about a small sukkah, a minimal size sukkah. We're talking about a large sukkah. But the scenario was where he was in the sukkah and the table was in the house. Okay, looks like he's right. The Gemara says, 1 second, sukkah ktana like pligi. They're not arguing about a sukkah ktana, there's no machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel about a small sukkah. But we have a brisa. We're actually going to have two brisas. Both of them are going to quote the opinion of Rebbe. that says the sukkah needs to be 4 by 4 amas. The question is, what does the Tanakama hold? It goes like this: Machzekes reishe v'ruba v'shulchanik sheira, a sukkah that contains the person's head, the majority of his body, plus a table is kosher. Rebbe says no. Ad sheba arba amas al arba amas, it has to be a 4 by 4 amma sukkah, much larger than reishe v'ruba v'shulchanik. The Tanya Yidach, but I have another brisa. Rebbe Yomi kol sukkah shein ba'arba amas al arba amas psula. The sukkah isn't 4 by 4 amas; it's puzzle. But Chachamim Aimrim, the Chachamim say apilu ein machzekes al reishe v'ruba kshera. Some say it's kosher, even if it only can contain his head and his majority of his body. What happened to the table? This opinion didn't mention the table. The first brisa said that it has to have the table. Second brisa says that it doesn't need the table. Whoever argues on Rebbe over here is not consistent. Rebbe's consistent, 4 by 4 amas. But there's a Tanakama or a Chachamim that isn't consistent. One place they said head, body, and table. The other place says head and body. So it says Kashan Adadi, it's a contradiction. Elalav Shemamina Beishamai Beisilo. You know what? Beishamai is arguing on Rebbe and Beisilo is arguing on Rebbe. Each brisa is containing the opinion of one of those. What does that tell me? That this is a machlekes about a minimal size sukkah. And I have a machlekes Beishamai and Beisilo. They are arguing about a small sukkah. They're arguing about a large sukkah that Rav Nachman by Yitzchak proved. But apparently they're arguing about a small sukkah also. Marzutra says, Masdisa Nami Dayaka. The truth is, I have proof from the Mishnah itself. Midiktani, Beishamai Poistan and Beisil Machshirin. It said, Beishamai says that it's sukkah, the sukkah is pasa. Beisil says the sukkah is kasha. V'misa, if according to you, that they're only arguing about a large sukkah, should have said that the person is yaitzik. The sukkah is kosher. The sukkah is kosher. If he wants to do the mitzvah, he has to put the table in there. But the sukkah is kosher. Why do you say it's the sukkah's puzzle? Sukkah's puzzle must be that you're dealing with a small sukkah. And that's why it would be puzzle, because it would be too small. So go back to what we said before. We had a problem. We said, Mishahaya, someone that was, it should have said machzekes, a sukkah that contains. So the Gemara says now, liyolam b'tarti pligi. Really, this is a double machlekes. Beishamai and Beisil, a double machlekes. Pligi b'sukkah ketana, pligi b'sukkah gedayla. So machlekes about a small sukkah, machlekes about a large sukkah. B'chesuri mechsra v'hachi ketani. The Mishnah is missing words. You have to read it as follows. Misha Yeresha Ruba B'Sukkah V'Shulchan B'Teichabayis. Someone that his head and his body is in the sukkah, but the table is in the house. B'Shama Yomrim LaYatza B'Sil Yatza. Talking about a large sukkah, but the table was not in the sukkah. It's Machlekes B'Shama and B'Sil. If there's a gzeira, Shama Yimashachach V'Shulchan, you may be drawn after there's table and eat inside. B'Sheina Machzekes El K'dei Reisha V'Ruba Bilvad. What about if it's a tiny sukkah? It only contains his Reisha V'Ruba, his head and the majority of his body. So there's two machlekes in it. We said before that the halacha is like Beishamai. Taisus quotes Seder Rav Amram that says that the halacha is like Beishamai in 6 places. Now there's a discussion which Taisus discusses and the Rishonim discuss that things just got quite complex because the halacha is like Beishamai. That was about a sukkah katana. That was about the small sukkah. What about the large sukkah where the table is in the house? So now that you've said that the Betarti Pligi is halacha like Beishamai in both of them or not? Is there a gezeira as well by a large sukkah that we pass like Beishamai that the table needs to be in the house? So it turns out that the Rif says Chad Taimel L'Tarbayu, B'Shneim Pasek Beishamai. The other Rishonim say no, that there's no gezeira. That's a machlekes Beishamai Beisil. It's not relevant to this. We pass like Beishamai only by the minimal size sukkah. Okay. That you need to be able to have a table. You need to have a table. They say you need to have that you need to have the table in the sukkah So if your table isn't in the sukkah, whether it's because it doesn't fit or because you didn't put it there, that's the Rif's job. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Uh-huh. Okay. It could be it's the same pictures that I have. It looks oh, Hamar on the floor. Okay. Okay, good. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So very good. So that we're gonna need to learn that Beishamai holds not. We mentioned that it could be that Beishamai holds that you really need a table in the sukkah. And the Shami Mashash Achapolvana is explaining, well, if the table's in the house, you're going to leave and go in the house. But according to that, there's another detail there, that according to the Rif, that's going to be the Pshat. According to the other way, maybe it's totally in that. It's that you need a table in the sukkah, or the problem is not that I need a table in the sukkah, but that my table is in the house. That's the other way. Okay. Oh, you sell off at the sukkah tables? Ellie, now people have these machines that cut out ads from the television shows. So they have to put the ads back in. They're saying, I am drinking Starbucks coffee. It has to go into the story itself. They have to say, I am using Eli Rafael of Sukkot. Okay. We're going to need to divide it up. There's a minimal size sukkah that's possible if it doesn't have the table. Then you have the large sukkah, where the sukkah is not possible, but you weren't yoitza. Shema, you must, because there's a gzeira. They made a gzeira that in order for you to fulfill the mitzvah, you have to have the table in there, in the sukkah. I hear what you're asking, not necessarily. Okay. Well, is it? No, 1 second. Rav Chanan Bar, what we said before on Daf Beis Amid Beis is a good place to go back to that. We asked the question: is the machlekes Rav Huna and Rav Chanan Bar Rabba a machlekes on the minimal size sukkah? We said no. Everyone agrees that the minimal size sukkah is Reishe Rubai V'Shulchanai. The question is, what about a sukkah that's L'mayla Me'es Ramama? Is that going to be a machlekes by Reishe Rubai V'Shulchanai? Is that going to be a machlekes? Is that only Reishe V'Shulchanai? Is that going to be a machlekes up until Dalet Amos? But after Dalet Amos, even Rav Huna would agree that it's kasha. So in other words, everyone is agreeing. Everyone here is paskening. Rav Chanan Bar Rabba, Rav Huna, probably Rav Yesh also we didn't mention that the minimal size sukkah is Reishe Rubai V'Shulchanai like Beishamai says. The question is the machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and there is Reishe Rubai V'Shulchanai 7 by 7 tvachim. According to Beis Hillel, it's 6 tvachim. Table is it's like the front seat on the airplane, where they have to pull the thing out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The Bali Muslims say that a guy goes into the sukkah. He thinks his own his room, but really his table's in the house. His mind is still attached to the house. He's only able to survive the sukkah because everything else is the house. He has the house. They give an example of a guy that's walking with a policeman. They don't know, is the guy walking, he's under house arrest. So is the guy walking the policeman, or is the policeman walking the guy? The only way to find out is when the guy runs away. Let's see what happens. So what happens if the guy says, okay, no more table in the house. That's it, I'm out, I'm in the sukkah. So that's what we're looking for. I trust in Hashem. Okay, Man Tana Lahad Tana Rabbanan. Who is the author of the following brisa? We're gonna have 10 cases. Each of these cases requires a house. And the rule of all of these cases is that the house needs to be 4 by 4 amas. Who holds that a house needs to be 4 by 4 amas? Probably Rebbe, that says that a sukkah needs to be 4 by 4 amas. So let's go through this. Who's the author of the following brisa? Bayashem bar amas al arba amas, a house that's not 4 by 4 amas. Potter ben a mezuzah, that's case number 1. It's exempt from a mezuzah. The Rambam learns she'im by arba amas al arba amas means that it doesn't contain 4 by 4 amas. However you make it, however you square it. In other words, 6 by 2 or something would also be chayim. The Rosh argues, the Rosh holds that it needs to be mamish a square. You need to have a square 4 by 4. That's our discussion in Hilchos Mezuzah. If you have a rectangular walk-in closet or something, it's not a square 4 by 4. It's not like it's the Rambam and the Rosh. We put up without a bracha, but it's based on this, and it could be even based on different kirsais. What's the bias shehein by arba ames al arba ames? Doesn't mean literally a 4 by 4, or it means to contain. And it's also exempt min hamaika. It's also pater min hamaika. If you don't have to put on the roof a fence. You have to put a roof on it. If you have a flat roof, you have to put a fence up, so no one should fall. But that's a din only if there's a house. If it's not a house, you don't have to put it up. Yeah, the Chazon Ish on this, that why not? If it's dangerous, you should have to put it up. If the reason for it is you shouldn't get hurt. So what's the difference if it's a house or not? Whatever the case is, the halach is a house requires the fence. A house could get tsuras abayis, leprosy on the house, but it needs to be a house. This is not a house if it's under 4 by 4. Special rule about selling property in the land of Israel that usually it gets returned by Yovel, and also certain time that a person can buy it back. A house in a walled city is an exception to that rule. And a house in a walled city could be sold and it never gets returned. It's a real sale. It goes out of the inheritance. It goes to the new person, to the new buyer. But this is not a house because it's under 4 by 4, so it has a din of a property, like a field, and it comes back by Yovel. If someone builds a new house and there's a war, when he goes to war, they make an announcement. Anyone that built a new house or that recently got married, it's allowed to go back. So he built a new house. Only thing is, it's not a house. It's not 4 by 4, so it doesn't count. That would have to do with, is she 3 years old? Comes to Hilchos Eruvin. Every house in the courtyard needs to participate in the Eruv. Because the courtyard is going to be considered a public area for these houses. So what they're going to do is that everyone is going to participate. All the houses are going to participate by giving bread. They're going to put it inside one house, and that house is going to be the residence of everyone in that courtyard. What about this house that has people in it that's under 4 by 4 amas? It's not considered a house. They don't have to participate. In other words, even if they didn't participate, you can still use that area and not say, oh, there's one person here that's ruining our area because they didn't participate. If there's a courtyard that contains this house and you want to join a mavoi was the cul-de-sac, that alleyway that everyone wants to be able to use the mavoi, so every courtyard needs to participate. This courtyard has only this small house that's not considered a house. They don't need to participate, and you can still carry them. The Eruv we mentioned needs to be placed in a house, but this is not a house. You can't put it in there. Now, just notice that we didn't say vein menichem by shita. We didn't mention about there's Iruvi Chatzeris and Shitufei Mevais. They're basically the same. One is joining a courtyard and one is joining an alleyway. The Shituf is joining the alleyway. When it comes to the Eruv, we said that the Eruv needs to be placed in a house, and this is not a house. When it comes to the Shituf, we didn't mention anything. We didn't mention. What happens is, outside of a city, when's the end of the edge of a city? So at the last house. After that house, then you count 70 amas. It's called a karfif. It's an area, like a park area that goes around the city. It's 70 amas and 2/3 and 3/4 of an amma. And 2/3 of an amma. 70 amas and 2/3. Now, if you have two cities, you want to walk from one to the other. So you have to count, on Shabbos, if you're going to walk, you have to count 2,000 amas. Only thing is that if the two cities are close enough, that when you walk, that you give each one 70 amas plus 2/3 of an amma, and they'll overlap, those 70 amas will overlap, then your 2,000 amas doesn't start from the edge of your city, it starts from the edge of the next city, so that will join the two cities. Now, if these cities are 141 amas apart, right? The two karfif, you give a karfif to each, but they're just on the edge. And then I have this small house right there. This house is able to join those two karfifs together, that I can start my 2,000 amas, my tchum, from outside the following city. Problem is, this isn't the real house. That's one pshat of it. Rashi's pshat. Another pshat is that if you want to count from the city, if there's a house in, a house out, you start from the house that's more further out. But this is not a house, so you don't start counting from that. Okay. The other thing is if there's partners or brothers that got an inheritance, and they're going to split it up. So when they split up the inheritance, they divide it after litigation, right? If there's anything left, the lawyer takes everything. They have to split it up. So the problem is that if it's too small to split, then it's not considered something that could be split. So one person takes the whole thing and the other one takes a value of it. So if a house is 4 by 4 amas, then they could split the house. But that's what we're thinking right now. Later on, we're going to change the pshat. But if it's under 4 by 4 amas, then they can't split it. It's too small to split. One person will take the house, other person will get some value, compensated. Lema Rebbe, Rabbana, we just said 10 cases. Let's say that all of this is the opinion of Rebbe, who holds that a sukkah needs to be 4 by 4 amas, and not the Rabbanan that say that it's 6 by 6 or 7 by 7. Bishame Bisil. The Gemara says, a field tamer Rabbanan, no. It could be the Rabbanan in this brisa. Adkan lekam Rabbanan hasam elin sukkah dir sarai. That was a din in sukkah. Sukkah is dir sarai. Aval gabi bias dir skevu afilo Rabbanan maidu. But here it's a house. Everyone agrees the house needs to be 4 by 4. The Shiloh was a sukkah. Very nice. The ESP Dalar Amsal Dalar Amas Dari Benchi Lay Dari Benchi. If it's not 4 by 4, and people don't live there, it's not a house. It could be a sukkah, but it's not a house. Amar Mar. Amar Mar is the way we quote a brisa. We want to discuss the brisa. We say the master said, and we're going to go back and analyze it. So we're going back to quote the first 5 things. Patim min hamezuzah, min hamaika, vein hamatam min hagayim. Those first 5, why does it need to be 4 by 4 amas? My timer. The Gemara says the bias ksivlu b'kulu, because those are psukim in the Torah. In each of those psukim, if you look in the Rashi quotes, all of those. It says in all of those psukim it says a bias. What about the and say chulu? It depends on the printer. The printer will put sometimes just say chulu. But it's gonna go through every piece of the brisa, so maybe that's why. It does that sometimes. It goes through a whole price. The next one, we had 3 examples of halachas here that are relevant to Hilchas Eruvin, where this is not considered a house. Those 3 halachas were that they don't need to participate in the Eruv, they don't participate in the Shita from voice, and the Eruv itself is not placed in that house. My taima, it's not fit for dwelling. And what was the idea? If an Eruv was that everyone is going to dwell in that one house, this is not a house that they could dwell in because it's too small. Apparently, you skipped from the fact that it didn't say that a shita, the joining of an alleyway, cannot be placed in this. Apparently, it can be placed in this. My taima. What's the reason? It says you know why? Because the shituf doesn't need to be placed in a house. The shituf itself is placed in a courtyard. The shituf is joining courtyards. An Eruv is joining houses. So the house, the Eruv that's joining houses makes everyone living in one house. The shituf makes everyone joining one courtyard. So the shituf itself could be put in a courtyard. So if this is not a good house, so fine, it's not a good house, at least it's a courtyard. So if it's a courtyard, right, it's too small. So at least it's a courtyard. And a courtyard is kosher. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. The Rubi Chatzeres is put in a courtyard. The Shituf Mavai is put in an alleyway. The joining of an alleyway is put in an alleyway. We asked we deliberate on that. What? Rubi Chatzeres B'Chatzer, you put the Eruv in the courtyard. But there's a Mishnah. It says, if you put the Eruv in the entranceway, like a gateway, or if you put the Eruv in a achsadra, which is a portico, Rashi says portico, which is a like an overhang. What do you call it? An awning. I was going to say that. A merpeset, or you put it on a porch. In an Eruv, it's not an Eruv. Vahadarsham, anyone that lives there, Iser, does not make it forbidden by not participating in the Eruv. He doesn't need to participate in the Eruv. He doesn't have a real dwelling. Elaima, the Gemara explains, not in the Chatzer. Eruv Chatzeres has to be put in the house in this courtyard. And the Shituf has to be put in the courtyard. This house is no worse than the courtyard, and so therefore the Shituf could be put into this house. Now it says, but this house is too small to be adjoining Iber. Rashi tells us it's like a pregnant woman that the stomach protrudes. So therefore this city also has like an extension to that house that's 70 amas away, and therefore it's like a pregnant city. And the edge of the city starts 70 amas later because of that house. So but the Gemara says there was a type of tent, type of hut that was used by people that watch the fruits, and that could extend the city. This house can't extend the city. My time up. What's the reason why a borganin, which was this hut that does work? Oh, maybe that was that picture, that first picture that we sent. That was the that was that. Oh, that's what they're using. Wow, that looks pretty permanent. I'm surprised. I thought it was something that was much more temporary than that. My timer. Borganin chazil milsai, vayla chazil milsai. Borganin at least does its job. It's a temporary hut, but this is supposed to be a house. It's not even a house. It's sort of like it's supposed to be useful for what it is. You know, if you take a sip of grapefruit juice, it's a little sour, which is fine because it's grapefruit juice. It's supposed to be like that. But if you take a drink of milk and it tastes like grapefruit juice, then there's something wrong. So here you have a borganin. It's a hut. It's supposed to be a hut. Now it's very small. It's under 4 amas, but fine, that's what it is. It's a hut. But the house, it's supposed to be a house, but it's not a house because it's under 4 amas, so it doesn't work. Even though it may be better than the borganin, but so what? The borganin is fit for what it's meant for. Okay, now it gets to the complication of dividing up the this house that's too small. It says, Taima. What's the reason why they can't divide this house? Brothers or partners. Less Beidalet Amas, because it's not 4 Amas. Is Beidalet Amas Chalkin? But if it is 4 Amas, you divide it. 1 second. But we have a Mishnah. When you divide it, you're not going to get 4 amas for each. In order for it to be a house, you need to have 4 amas. If you divide it in half, if it is 4 amas, you tell me you can divide it in half, it's not going to give you 4 amas for each, it's going to give you 2 amas for each. Adjust, I don't know what your Gemara says, mine says kichatzer. It needs to be adjusted. In a courtyard. Huna says like this, sort of like a parking spot that you get for an apartment. They give you 1 parking spot per apartment, no matter what the size is. So if it's here you have a courtyard. So how do you divide up the courtyard? There's 1 very large house, and there's 3 small houses. So one brother takes the large house, another brother takes the 3 small houses. So Rav Huna says that you actually divide this courtyard into 4. And you give the brother with the large house a quarter, and the brother that takes the 3 small houses gets 3/4 of the courtyard. That's Rav Huna's opinion. Rav Chizda says no. Rav Chizda says you're going to divide the courtyard equally. The only thing that you're going to do is that you're going to give each entranceway 4 amas in front of the door. When you come up to the door, you need a place to be able to put your things down. So in front of that doorway, you need to get 4 amas. So each doorway gets 4 amas, which means it's going to be, depending on the length of the door, you're going to get 4 amas out, and then however long the door is. 4 amas out, and then however long the door is, every doorway. And then the rest of the courtyard divide equally. But what type of house would give you this access, this type of area in the chutzner? The hani mili bias. That's only a house, still a mehevikai, that's there to stand. So you have chutzner. So you gain they give you a courtyard. Hi, the lemistikai, but this house that's meant to be knocked down, you don't get a courtyard because it's not big enough. So it's not that you divide the house, you divide the courtyard based on the houses that are in it. We're not talking about cutting a house that's 4x4. We're talking about dividing a courtyard with a house that has under 4 amas. Okay. That a sukkah is 7x7, but a house is 4x4 according to everyone. We digressed in halachas of houses. Mishnah said that if it's above 20 amas, it's possible. So it comes along. Now we have a bunch of statements from the Beis Medrash of Rav Ashi. The Gemara itself is going to discuss this. And it says, let's say you have a sukkah that's above 20 amas. So you want to make it kosher. You're going to put down on the floor, you're going to put down pillows and blankets to raise the floor so that it shouldn't be 20 amas tall. Remember, we said we measure it from inside, not from outside. So if you can put something down, padding down on the floor, so it's going, very good, very nice. That's a good picture. So the Gemara says, miyat. That's not considered a diminishing the size. There's a discussion in the Paiskim. It's apparently you don't have to adjust the schach after you fix it. Yeah. It's machlekes later Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. If schach over 20 amas is considered schach pasal, Rabbeinu Tam says it's not schach pasal. It's just the sukkah is not. It's a problem. It's like a problem in the defanis. It's not a problem in the schach. So what's going to be over here when you fix your sukkah by putting things down on the ground? Do you have to adjust the schach or not? It seems even according to Rashi that holds that it's schach pasal doesn't say that you have to fix the schach. Yeah, it's a little bit unclear why. Okay, but the first thing is that if it's pillows and blankets, it doesn't help. Even though you said that I'm leaving it there, Rashi says you're mevatel it. You said that I'm not moving it for 7 days. That's Rashi's pshat in batlin l'kulu. I'm not moving it for 7 days. No one's putting their blankets down. It's like saying someone's going to put his jacket and hat on the floor and said that's going to be the new floor. We don't trust you that you're going to leave it there. You're going to ruin it. You're actually the type that's going to do it. That's not considered anything. Now we're going to discuss other types of materials that you're going to put down and what you need to say to make it the floor. Tevenu bitlay. If you put down straw, this could be common. Some people, it's a restaurant in Los Angeles, fish grill. They had straw. They made it like this, like farmy type look. They had straw on the floor. You would walk in. Remember? They still have that. It's still there. Didn't help the flavor. It was good though. Where they put straw on the floor. So havimiyat. If you say, you have to actually say, befiv, Rashi says, you have to pronounce that I'm leaving it there for 7 days, and then it's going to be a new floor, and then you measure from the raised straw.
So this discussion is you can solve the problem with a height by raising the floor.
Yeah. Which you can. You can. Just the question is what material you're going to put there that we're going to consider actually a floor, and not like, kids will walk on the bed, they'll walk on the table depending on their age, but it doesn't mean that's the floor. So here you have a guy that's doing the same thing. It would say, well, what are you, do we count what you're doing? So it has to be something that's real. But for sure, if he puts down dirt, that's going to work. What about if he puts down straw? He doesn't make any pronouncement. We just know he has no use for the straw anyway, so he's probably going to leave it there. In Afar Stam, where we have no inkling of what he's going to do with this dirt, but he doesn't say anything, and he doesn't say he's going to remove it. That should be a good floor. But it turns out it's a machlekes Rabbi Yossi and the Rabbanan regarding something else. Machlekes Rabbi Yossi Rabbanan regarding a totally different halacha. The Tanana was taught in the Mishnah. Now it turns out that there's a corpse in this house, but then they filled up the house with straw or rocks. Sounds like the mafia. And ubitlai, and they leave it there. So mavatal. It's batal. Now, the relevance for this is, do I say that there's a gap between the corpse and the roof, and then that gap is considered insulation, and then there's no tumah that spreads above the roof? If there's no gap, then it's called tumah ritzutza. The tumah spreads straight up to the sky, and then a kayan that would go over the roof would be coming. But if there is a gap, so I'm filling it up with material, but do I consider that material solid? Do I consider that material not there because we're going to remove it soon? So it goes like this. Then it's mevatel. Yeah, it's the opposite. Because here we're trying to make it that there is a gap to protect. In Sukkah, we're trying to make it that it's really there. So it's mevatel. If you recited, if you pronounced that I'm leaving it there. Bitlayin, like bitlaylay, that's the Tanakama's opinion. Only if you mevatel it. But Tani Allah, but there was a brisa on that Mishnah. Rabbi Yossi says, Teven veinas lifnaisai, that straw that you're not going to remove, even if you didn't pronounce anything, hareo kafar stam, that's like plain dirt. Ubatal. Afar vasad lifnaisai, but if it's dirt that you're going to remove, hareo kastam teven v'lay batal. We have several levels here. If you look at the Rashi, you see a Rashi, Tevin Beinasal Lefnaisir Kastama for a bottle. You go towards the bottom of that Rashi. Alma, he says, Tevin Ubitlai, Afro Bitlai, Kulamaida the bottle. Everyone says it's bottle. Rashi summarizes it. If you nullify it with a pronouncement, whether it's straw, whether it's dirt, it's good. The Rashi goes to the other side now. Tevin stam v'afar vasad lefnaisei. Plain straw, you don't say anything. Or dirt that you say that you're going to remove. Kuli alma loy batal. What about the middle cases? Tevin v'nasad lefnaisei, straw that you're not going to remove. V'afar kiyotzebay, and dirt that you're not going to remove. Or yafilu afar stam, or even dirt that you don't say anything about, or there's nothing. Machlekes the Rabbi Yossi batal. That's a machlekes. So that's the summary of this piece. Let's go the other way. You have a tall sukkah, it's over 20 amas. But there are branches, when you have the palm front, the branches hang down, depending on which way you place it. But they'll hang down below. So let's say it's exactly over 20 amas. Now the branches are hanging down within the 20 amas. Where do you measure it from? Do you measure it from the schach or from the tips of the branches that are hanging in? So if those branches itself that are hanging in have more shade than sun, kshera. But if those branches itself have more sun than shade in those branches, and if I would somehow be able to remove the top schach and just leave the branches there, would there be more shade than sun? If not, then it's possible. Let's say a sukkah is only 10 tvachim tall, and now there's branches that are going inside the sukkah. This is going to be quite uncomfortable. So, but Savar Abaya Lameimar im Chamasim Ruv Mitzilasam Kshera. Abaya thought to say that it depends. If those branches have more shade than sun, then there's a problem because it's 10 tvachim, and this is under 10 tvachim. What's the minimal height of a sukkah? 10 tvachim. Now the branches are going in. It's a problem. But if there's more sun than shade, then it's going to be kosher because that's not considered schach. That's not considered meiruch. Amalei Rava, this is in the sukkah. I go walk in the sukkah. It's only 10 tvachim. I probably crawl into the sukkah because it's only 10 tvachim, but the branches are sticking down into the sukkah. So Abaye says it depends how thick those branches are. If the branches are more sun than shade, then it should be kosher. Amalei Rava, hadiras ruchi, vein adam dar b'diras rucha. No, it's not a valid sukkah. The person wouldn't dwell in a sukkah that's not so uncomfortable. So even though it's not an issue in the schach, it's an issue in the dwelling place. Yeah, before we had a machlekes, the smallest size of the sukkah between Rebbe and Beis Shammai, some of the achronim want to say that that's machlekes is, according to Rebbe, even a sukkah that you eat in, you have to be able to sleep in it as well. And you can't really sleep in a 7x7 sukkah. I can eat in it, but I can't sleep. Rebbe holds that you have to be able to dwell in the sukkah includes eating and sleeping. So it needs to be 4x4. And the Beis Shammai held that no, you can have a sukkah for eating, and that's your sukkah for eating. It's going to be uncomfortable for sleeping. I don't know. It's a kosher sukkah. You're doing it whatever you can at 7x7. Remember in Muncie, there was this guy that had a sukkah just for learning there in the front. There was a remember Beis Tefillah. It's like a little the Yakish Shul was went down a little I don't remember that. It was across from that cemetery from the Civil War. So it was a little show. Anyway, on that block there was a big sukkah, and outside was a small sukkah with the stender. It was just for learning. So you couldn't do anything else in that sukkah. It was exactly a minimal size. Okay. Haisa Gavaya Me'estrim Ama. If you have a very tall sukkah and you have what you do is you put a platform like a stage on the back side, the back of the sukkah. Now, the reason why this is significant is because I want to get 3 walls that are kosher. So I put it against the back of the sukkah, I'll get the whole back wall plus the 2 sides. In our Gemaras, there's pictures of them. It's against the back wall. Now, how big is that stage, that platform? It's 7x7 tvachim. That's great. I have a kosher sukkah. So when I step up onto that platform, I'm within 20 amas of the schach. It's kosher. It's kshera. Now you're getting complicated. If you put it along the side, now the stage, which is going to be a kosher sukkah, but it only has 2 walls because it has the side wall and then a little bit of the back wall. But the third wall of the sukkah, remember we said that sukkahs are usually only 3 walls in Chazal. So this one, you don't have 4 walls. You have 3 walls to the sukkah. But now I only have 2 walls. So im yesh misfas yitzvah l'kaisel dalad amas psula pachas mi'arba amas kshera. It says like this. Very interesting halacha. That you can build a wall that arches. The Gemara calls it a doifen hakuma. The wall arches. Now, what's going to happen is on this side, I have a platform. I'm building it on a platform, so it goes up 19 amas, and on top is schach. But on this side, there's a drop. So on this side, the wall goes up 20 amas, and then the schach goes over, but that schach is pasal schach. So the wall, I don't have 3 walls to my sukkah. So the thing is like this, that I can make the wall arch. If it's within 4 amas, then I can say that that's all wall. It's just an arched wall. It's a daifan akuma. And really that wall is connected to this, and I really do have 3 walls. I do have 3 walls to my sukkah. I'm gonna have to step down, but I do have 3 walls to the sukkah because it's I know that area I can't eat under because that's the arched wall. That's considered wall, not tzach. But if it's within 4 amas, that's going to be kosher. Sort of like people have a sukkah outside the house, they have an overhang. It's okay until that overhang is 4 amas. Once the overhang is 4 amas, then you can't use the house wall. Yeah, we had this in the Shula Bel Harbor. That had a big sukkah. Remember that big sukkah? Now they built in that area, a big sukkah, but on the deck. But then they had like a big overhang that went down. That overhang, I think, was 4 amas. They needed to have 3 walls on the other side, which they did, but they couldn't use the shul wall. I think, if I'm correct. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be on the next page. Let me turn the page. The Gemara asks straight away, "My Kamash Malan." The problem over here is that Ravashi is Yeshiva Ravashi is telling me these halachas. The Gemara is a little surprised. Ravashi, you're telling me this halacha? My Kamash Malan Damrin Daifen Akuma, that we say that you make an arched wall. Tanina, we have this in the Mishnah. A house that collapses. The roof collapsed. If now you have a skylight, so you have it's a sukkah. You can put schach on top, and it depends. If the walls are within 4 amas from the hole, so then it's going to be that you have 4 walls. Otherwise, if it's a large room with just one skylight in the center, then you have schach, but you don't have walls. You need to have 4 walls. When is it considered you have walls? That's only if it's within 4 amas of the wall. So the Gemara says, I haven't. I'm sorry. Yeah, I want to avoid saying that it's mamish in the center because or else we're going to have a question over here. So let's say it's on one side. Yeah, that's in the center. That looks in the center. Okay, yeah. You'll see why. You'll see. They're very good. The Gemara says, so I have a Mishnah. Ravashi, what are you telling me? Daifen Akuma. The Gemara says, "Mal the temasam the chazil daifen avalach lechazil daifen emalai kamashmalan." See, the Mishnah is much different. The Mishnah was a regular size wall. Our wall here, you know what our wall is here? 20 amas tall. There's a problem with the wall. Maybe I don't say daifen akuma with a puzzle wall. Ravashi has a chiddush. I say daifen akuma with a puzzle wall. Okay, now the Gemara says again something else from Ravashi. If it's 20 amas and then there's a platform in the center, this is not against any wall. The platform at the stage is in the center. So where is the sukkah going to be kosher? Only in the center, right? Now we have Deifen Akuma from all 3 sides. If it's within 4 amas of the wall, the platform, if it's in 4 amas of the wall, of the 3 walls, then it's going to be kosher. My Kamashma and the Deifen Akuma, I know. What are you telling me? Deifen Akuma, an arched wall. We already said you make an arched wall. Umar says, "Mal the tema Deifen Akuma miruach achasamnina. Now we'll call ruach ruach light." We thought maybe you can only arch the wall on one side. Now you're making an arch. I don't know, arching is word. You make an arch on all 3 sides. So that's a chiddush. Okay, Kamash Malan, that's good. Rashi on the first case of the itztava of the platform against the back wall, Rashi tells me a big chiddush. He says that where's my kosher sukkah? On top of the platform. Then Rashi says if you step off the platform, it's also good. Still kosher. Why? The walls over there are puzzle. It doesn't matter. If I have schach that's sticking out of my sukkah. He quotes the Gemara, Daf Yates. Pesel hayetz min sukkah. If I have schach sticking out of my sukkah, it's kosher, and you could eat in the area even off the platform.
It's still inside the wall.
Well, he doesn't say this when you're under a daifan akuma, but here the entranceway was not a daifan akuma. The entranceway was just the schach was too high. He says you're fine under there. It's a big chiddush.
So sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You need the defanis also. You're saying that the 20 amas is still in the defanis, not still in the skach. Could be. It could be. That's a discussion. Let's say your sukkah is too short. I can only imagine this in Russia under communism, where they have to make sukkahs in the ground. They dig a hole and put some branches. So your sukkah is too short. So you dig in the ground to make it 10 tefachim. You're going down. So you have a small wall. That's a good picture. You can see that. Now, what we're discussing now is you see the grass along the edge. The discussion is how wide is that grass? So we say that grass needs to be from the edge of the hole. It needs to be 3 tefachim. It needs to be under 3 tefachim. If it's 3 tefachim, we turn the page. We're on Dalet Amid Beis. If it's less than 3 tefachim, it's kosher. Why over there did you say that it's 4 amas? You can bend the wall. All of a sudden over here, you get so strict on me. You say that it's 3 tefachim. You see, 4 amas is 24 tefachim. You can bend the wall 24 tefachim. Now you're telling me only 3 tefachim, right? 6 tefachim to 1 amma. Yeah, so this is like a huge chumrah. When I'm digging down, it has to be within 3 tefachim. When I'm going up, that could be 24 tefachim. So it says, Hasan, diesel the daifen. Pachas mi'arba masagi. Chachal shvui daifen. Pachas mishleisha tefachim in ilaylay. It's a totally different story. Over there, I had a wall. Any wall that's 10 tefachim is a wall. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to connect the wall to my schach. So I said, well, I can make it an arch up to 4 amas. But the wall existed. Now, I don't have a 10 tefachim wall. You're trying to tell me that you have a wall. So you have a wall. Where's your wall? So I have 6 tefachim here and I have 4 tefachim down here. Okay? How far apart are those 6 and 4 tefachim? So it has to be within 3 tefachim to make it a wall. Once it's a wall, then you get 4 amas to bend it this way or that way. But if it's not a wall yet, it needs to be within 3 tefachim. That's considered lavat. Let's do one more. If it's 20 amas tall, and there's an amud, there's a pillar in the center. You see, before we were talking about a platform. On the platform, I didn't have walls. I was using the walls of the sukkah that was built non-halachically over 20 amas. But I put the platform in there, it's going to be good. Here, my sukkah is built also not halachically, but I'm not using walls at all. All I'm doing is I'm putting an amma, the stand, a 7 by 7, 10 tefachim tall stand, a block of wood or something, a pillar. So Savar Abaya Lamemar good asik mechitzta. Abaya thought, you know what? When you stand, this is what you were saying, if you stand on something that's tall, 10 tefachim, so the walls that are beneath you, fictitiously, phantom walls, halachic walls, they'll continue up because you're already high up. So it's like as if you're surrounded because you're 10 tefachim tall. the platform before we were discussing wasn't 10 tefachim. Abaye thought maybe you could say this. Amalei Rava responded, Binan bechitas hanikaris v'leka. You need mechitas hanikaris. You need visible walls. Here you don't have any. These are not walls. Okay, the next Gemara is going to discuss when I do have walls underneath me. Why? Because I'm in a building or a house. The walls beneath me are walls. Here, there's no one living in the amud, in the pillar. Okay, I think we should leave this for tomorrow. Hey, everyone. I got to